Back with us to take us through the papers are the journalist and author Helen Croydon and arts journalist Steve Hargrave. Your final outing this morning. We're going to have a look at quite a serious story. This is domestic violence in the Observer and how it might be tackled differently in this country.
Yes, a new US-style law coming in, as the headline says, that could tackle domestic violence. Now, I was quite surprised that there isn't already a law in place for this, but under the existing law, domestic violence comes under the laws of assault or rape, which has its problems because it means that the police and the court system can't take into account previous history. So a very new specific bill is in the process of being formulated, which takes into account physical abuse and psychological abuse and could hold a prison sentence of 14 years. So very overdue, I have to say, and I was surprised that this isn't already in place.
I think a lot of people will be surprised as you are that there isn't already something that's used, but this is a completely new bill.
Well, it comes off the back of a survey which shows that most victims of domestic abuse don't report the crime until they've experienced it at least 30 times. So obviously a very specific law is needed to tackle this.
And they said that the stats there for the state side where they've had this law for some time now, I mean, it says that the reporting of incidents has increased by nearly 50%, and the incidents of violence have decreased by more than a third. So the stats from America are certainly very positive and appealing, which is why they think this will definitely go through. I
think the thing that's mentioned quite often is that women simply don't acknowledge that they are experiencing domestic abuse and are sort of in denial.
And men as well, of course, because it does affect men.
That's true, yeah. The stats not as high, obviously, affecting them, but they are affected.
But having a law that protects them will encourage them to come forward, because that's the difficulties a lot of people having coming forward, that there is no law to protect them, so it's very difficult for them. So.
And a system will be in place, so trained officers will know what to look out for and how to, a set procedure through the court. So a very, very brilliant thing if this does come into place.
But the experience in America does look very positive. Yeah. Let's have a look at the Telegraph. This is a story about maternity tourism. Tell us what that is.
Yeah, the Telegraph going big on the front page of this today. We spoke earlier on, actually, about immigration, certainly a hot topic again with a lot of the papers this week because of the changes for Bulgarians and Romanians coming into the country from January the 1st. This one specifically in the Telegraph, the 300 maternity tourists, as they call it. The abuse of the NHS is... we've talked about this many, many times over the years. They reckon it's costing £80 million a year of taxpayers' money for people coming in from the EU to basically use and abuse the NHS. Specifically, this story is about these hundreds of pregnant ladies almost not admitting it, forging doctor's certificates so they can get on a plane very late into pregnancy.
That's the thing, because you're not allowed to fly.
You're not allowed to fly. So there is a lot of lying that goes into it. And they study went over 2 years at Gatwick Airport, the 300 people was for, and it was 300 women that came through. A lot of them had to be let in because they were so close to giving birth that they ended up having to come through and then got the facilities of the NHS anyway. And the question really that this revolves is, where do you stop it? How do you know? When do you stop it? And whose job is it really to be able to stop it? Is it at airports, which seems a bit last minute for these people to have to do this? And is it in the hospitals when they're sort of asking people if they have a right to be over here? It's probably too late by then. So it is a tricky subject, not just with pregnancy, but of course with any.
Yeah, but very difficult if people are forging the doctor's certificates. I mean, how do you...
It's very hard to get around that. So the government are basically trying to look at ways that they might be able to, but as we say, it's one of those tricky scenarios.
Presumably these women think that they're going to get better maternity care once they're here, but they could be harming the baby by getting on a flight so late, so they could be defeating...
There is that, yeah.
They obviously think it's worth the risk, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my mum's a nurse. I was talking to her over Christmas and we were talking about this. And, yeah, she was saying, you know, immigration and stuff, all great, all brilliant. It's great, this trade of skills that we can get out of it. You know, workers coming over here, fantastic to fill holes in the system. But people coming over here to abuse the NHS, she's profoundly worried about it. So it'll be interesting to see whether anything can be done. I think something needs to be done.
It says it costs 80 million a year, doesn't it? Which is enough for 2,000 nurses.
Absolutely, yeah.
On the NHS.
Which would be a lot more useful.
Yeah, no, it's a long-standing problem and one that does certainly need to be addressed. From maternity tourism to South Pole tourism. Helen, this is in the Times page 8. Tell us about this story.
There's a rise in people going to the South Pole for a day trip. So if you fancy something to do on New Year's Day, for a cost of £27,000, you can get a flight.
Not with my Christmas credit card bills.
Yeah, apparently there's now 65 day trippers from Britain have done this, and it's a rise of 25% of last year. And they do think there's a souvenir shop. Once they get there, they can play cricket, all these things. But of course, environmentalists now warning that we could see a repeat of what's happened on Mount Everest with, over-tourism,
and what they leave behind,
and, damaging the climate, damaging the terrain there. I mean, £27,000. Right, great. I'm sure it's a great thing to do. I'm sure it's a great thing to see. But I can't help thinking that this is a little bit of a shortcut and a little bit of an easy way out. I mean, what's happening? The whole point of exploring the South Pole is you've endured a real hardship. You've had to train for it. But now you can just put your hand in your pocket and go there by plane.
I would imagine it's a very niche market, though, of people who can afford £27,000 for a day trip. So you have to look at the percentage it's gone up by. It might only be about 2 or 3 people, maybe.
Yeah. People just to show off sort of one of those things like everyone now trying to get into space and those sort of things.
Well, it's a tough one. Space travel, South Pole.
It's not, luckily not worries that are in my world.
If you've got the money, you can travel wherever you like.